Olga Hepnarova was an average child growing up in Czechoslovakia, but out of nowhere, she developed psychiatric problems that plagued her for the rest of her life. She had attempted suicide by age 13 and had survived frequent beatings and other abuse at the mental hospital she was staying at. As she grew up, her life didn't improve much as she bounced around from job to job. Once she found work as a truck driver, she eventually cut her family off and isolated herself. After trying to burn down her family farm, Olga quickly came up with another, more heinous way to get attention. On July 10, 1973 in Prague, Olga, in her newly rented Praga RN, spent about 30 minutes circling a tram stop, waiting for a good amount of people to gather up. Once about 25 people were there, she drove to the end of the block, turned around, and gunned it. And she didn't stop. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Olga was born on June 30th, 1951 to a middle-class family in Prague, Czechoslovakia. Her father was a bank clerk and her mom was a dentist, and Olga did well in school until she suddenly developed psychiatric problems stemming from an inability to effectively communicate with people. In 1964, a 13-year-old Olga attempted suicide by overdosing on her medication. She was placed in a mental hospital in Operany, where she suffered beatings and sexual abuse after her attempted escape. The doctors tried to diagnose her, as they identified several unhealthy traits like apathy, insubordination, negativism, detachment, vomiting, and nicotine addiction, but they were unable to give her an official diagnosis. One of the few psychiatrists she opened up to actually diagnosed her with schizophrenia. 2 years later, Olga wrote him a letter updating her on her life. She said that she hadn't spoken to her father in years and that she had nothing to speak about with her mother. Her general view of society was this: I hate people. I wonder how my relationship will look as time goes by. I want the people to not exist for me at all. Their words and chatter are indifferent to me. That's what I want. It's better for me when I'm alone than when I'm with them. Everyone falls for their smiles and fellowship. They mutilated my soul. Olga eventually left the hospital, but she struggled to hold down a job. And then she discovered that she was bisexual, seeking relationships with both men and women. After she cut off her family, she bought a cabin in Olesko, where she later sold and used the money to buy a Trabant car, one that she always wanted. Her father had inherited a farm in the village of Sobrody, and on August 17, 1970, she used a bottle of gasoline and lit the barn door on fire. Olga hoped that the flames would destroy the building, one in which her sister and two tenants were soundly asleep. Luckily, they managed to get up and extinguish the flames in time, with the damages only being about 50 korunas. Olga was never charged for this crime, but she confessed to the act 3 years later, saying that the farm was the cause of many financial disputes with her parents. By 1973, Olga's mental state had completely collapsed, as she felt that everyone around her was trying to hurt her. She said she was beaten up in the street for no reason, and no one came to help her. She didn't want to be an unknown suicide, so she planned something that would make her famous. She initially wanted to derail an express train or detonate a bomb in a room full of people, but those required too much work, and she instead decided on a mass shooting. She wanted to buy an automatic weapon and open fire on people in Wenceslas Square. She went to a shooting range to practice her aim, but she changed her mind after noticing the difficulty of obtaining such a weapon, and also because she was afraid she would be immediately killed. So her final decision was to use a vehicle as a weapon. For the first 6 months of 1973, Olga lived in room 502 of the Pension Malasis. On July 9th, she left to go look at her cottage for the last time, then abandoning her Trabant car that she loved so much. The next day, she completed a few test drives and decided on a Praga RN, a 6,000-pound freight bus. At around 1 p.m., Olga drove from the Defenders of Peace to Strasmayer Square in the Prague 7 district, where she saw people waiting at a tram stop. There were only a few people there, so she circled the block for about a half hour until about 25 people were gathered there. She then did one more lap and gunned it, driving onto the sidewalk and into the crowd. When the truck stopped, witnesses rushed onto the scene thinking that the truck had malfunctioned, but Olga was calmly sitting in the driver's seat, openly admitting that she ran into the crowd on purpose. 8 people died and 12 were injured in the attack. Before this happened, Olga had sent a letter to 2 newspapers, explaining her actions as revenge for the hatred that she felt was directed against her by her family and the world. The letter read, "I am a loner, a destroyed woman, a woman destroyed by people. I have a choice to kill myself or to kill others. I chose to pay back my haters. It would be too easy to leave this world as an unknown suicide victim. Acta non verba. Society is too indifferent, rightly so. My verdict is, I, Olga Hepnarova, the victim of your bestiality, sent you to death." When she was arrested, she told police that her intention was to kill as many people as possible. There were no trams, no cars, nothing was in my way. I said to myself this was the right time to do it. I drove onto the pavement, went on and ran to the crowd of people, knocking them down. She went into excruciating detail, telling them that she noted how the ground sloped into the tram stop, allowing her to gain speed for maximum damage. She then called for the death penalty, accusing society for her actions. If society destroys individuals, individuals can destroy society. I wanted to take my revenge on society, including my family, because they are my enemy. Knowing that I managed to do it, I felt a kind of release and satisfaction. On April 6, 1974, Olga was found guilty of 8 murders and sentenced to death by hanging. Her mother tried to beg the courts for mercy, but the execution date was set for March 12, 1975. Despite Olga telling reporters that she welcomed the death penalty, when the time came, she became hysterical, begging for her life, and she lost control of her bodily functions as she was dragged kicking and screaming to the gallows. Olga was only 23 years old when her sentence was carried out, and she was the last woman to be executed in Czechoslovakia. That's ridiculous. Just out of nowhere, you just decide to just run down people. Like, I don't even get it. I really don't. Obviously, she has some type of mental issues, but I can't really consider that when you circle around the block multiple times. You're just waiting until enough people get there so you can cause maximum, you know what I mean? Like, you're definitely sane. Like, you can't get it where you're not insane. Like, I don't, like, only 23 years old too, so I think she definitely went through some crazy stuff when she was young to really corrupt her mind like this. And you're so brazen, like, oh yeah, I welcome the death penalty. Society has done so bad to me. Then when the time comes for you to be killed, you're like, no, don't kill me. Like, whatever, man. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Thank you. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.